$9-something billion worth of cuts. You've got the big, beautiful bill that has, you got to pass, or we've got trillions in tax increases coming our way, plus a lot of hopefully good cuts, things the Senate's still working on it. But I wanted to know what the status of all this is. So we're going to Brandon Arnold. He is the executive vice president of the National Taxpayers Union. And Brandon, I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Let me ask you this. I need your assessment on the fate of both the big, beautiful bill and the rescission package. What say you? What's going to happen with both of these bills?
Well, I'm pretty optimistic on both fronts, and there's a lot of work to be done. But both of those pieces of legislation have already cleared the House of Representatives, which has an extraordinarily thin margin of error there. And you talk about the rescissions package. It's $9.4 billion with a B. That's a lot of money for you and me. That's not a lot of money for the federal government. It's a rounding error. So if we can't start to cut even in these small increments, that's about 0.14% of the federal budget. If we can't start taking some steps in this direction, it's very, very concerning about the fiscal health of our nation. And in terms of the tax bill, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're talking about a $4+ trillion tax hike if Congress can't get this right. So I think something will pass. I'm not sure exactly how it'll look. It's going through the legislative ringer right now, but I think we'll get a good bill in the end that averts this massive economy-crushing tax increase that'll take place at the end of the year.
So, Brandon, here's my take. I'm a recovering public servant. I served in our state house. The Senate, you hear a lot from Senator Lee, our senator in Utah. You hear from Rand Paul. You hear from Wisconsin Senator Johnson about wanting to see more cuts. But there's a part of me that says McConnell, whether it's Susan Collins or Murkowski, seems like there's some spending people in there. What will the bill that comes out of the Senate look like? We know nobody rubber stamps another house's bill, so we know they're going to have their own bill. Who's behind the scenes, do you think, carrying the day? Is there going to be more cuts coming out of the Senate, or is it going to be even more lean than what the House sent them?
Yeah, you described the push and pull that's taking place very nicely, and I associate myself a lot more with the Mike Lees and Ron Johnsons of the world. I think we do need to make some pretty significant cuts to the federal budget right now. We're spending $2 trillion more than we take in each and every year. That's unsustainable. So I think this bill will likely move in a positive direction, and maybe that's me being overly optimistic. But I think when you talk about some intelligent reforms to Medicaid, the left goes bananas if you cut a nickel from Medicaid. But if you actually talk to people about the kinds of reforms that we're making, they're just common sense reforms. People that have the ability to work should work or be looking for work if they're going to collect taxpayer-funded benefits. That's pretty straightforward. If somebody's in this country illegally, they should not be receiving government benefits. That's pretty common sense. When we talk about these types of reforms, let alone all the money laundering that California and other blue states do, I think there's a lot of savings to be achieved. And I'm hoping that the messaging delivered by folks like you to your listeners, the people like Ron Johnson and Rick Scott and Rand Paul to their constituents, I'm hoping that that'll prevail in this situation, and people will realize that there's so much fat, there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government, and just squeezing that out will improve our fiscal outlook tremendously.
Brandon, what would you say to our listeners who are frustrated with this? The lack. This should be a lot bigger. DOJ found at least $170 billion. Those are with receipts. You have a lot out there, as you've already pointed out. So we have listeners, and I share this sentiment that we would love to see more. We think there's receipts for more spending cuts, and we need to make them. What would you say to the listeners who think that the rescission bill or the big beautiful bill aren't worthy of passage without much steeper cuts? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I very much sympathize with that viewpoint. First of all, second of all, this is the old aircraft carrier analogy here. You can't turn an aircraft carrier around on a dime. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes a lot of patience here. And unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with that scenario where we're making some modest reforms initially. That $9.4 billion package, it's pretty tiny. But I think members of Congress need to see that they can cut spending and that the sky will not fall, that there will not be children dying in the streets of America, that we're going to be okay. All we're trying to do here is get back to, say, 2019 levels of spending or 2020 levels of spending, because what's taken place over the past few years is this ratchet effect. Spending went up during the pandemic. And even though the pandemic the pandemic went away, spending kept going up and up. We didn't revert back to where we used to be. And that's all we need to do. We were a pretty strong nation back in 2019. We didn't have cataclysmic effects because we didn't spend enough government money. So I think getting back to that point is pretty reasonable, pretty common sense economics.
So if I'm an optimist, is this muscle memory? Are they learning how to cut? Is this rescission package of $9.4 billion and the big beautiful bill? This is getting their muscle memory. They're learning how to do it, and we'll see more cuts. We'll see more rescission packages coming from the White House. We'll see budgets that might actually have real cuts in them. Or is this a one-time shot in a moment where we have a unique majority in the Congress and with President Trump?
I think it's the muscle memory. I think that's what we're developing now. I know the folks at OMB, Russ has a great team over there. They're working on an additional rescissions package to bring to Congress. First of all, I think that's the right way to do things. We need both Congress and the president to buy into these spending cuts and go through that traditional statutory process here. We can't just allow the executive branch to do things unilaterally, because I do think that creates legal challenges and reduces the durability of making some of these these spending cuts. So, but I do think they're already in the process of teeing up more rescissions packages. I think they are excited to get these bills done, get these bills to the president's desk, and move on to the next fight. So that is my hope. Again, I don't intend to be Pollyanna-ish here. But I do think, it does take many, many pieces of legislation and many efforts to get back to where we need to be, fiscally speaking.
I guess my last question is, and it's maybe a nice to have, not a have to have. We've heard Senator Thune, Majority Leader, say that he thinks around 4th of July we could see something finally done, maybe sent to the president's desk. I kind of think that it might be when they're staring at their August recess and they're not going to have it if they don't get it done. So I'm looking at closer to August. What do you see? When do you think that the Senate and the House will come together, both on the big, beautiful bill and the rescissions package?
Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing is so much of these conversations is happening behind closed doors. Yeah. So they are talking right now as they try to get, the necessary 51 votes in the Senate here. They are simultaneously talking to their counterparts in the House of Representatives, and the Speaker is very much involved in this conversation. Jason Smith on the Ways and Means Committee. All of the key players on the House side are being involved in the Senate conversations with the idea that once they get this bill passed to the Senate, and they are aiming to do that probably in a week and a half or so, ambitious, but that's what they're aiming for, then they could move it very, very quickly over to the House side and kick off the 4th of July holiday with some serious fireworks. I think that's plausible. Then again, it doesn't take much to throw things off track here, and just one or two bumps in the road could be pushing us back to August recess, as you suggest.
Thank you, Brandon. That's Brandon Arnold, with Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers.